Back to TV on the radio.
Okay, let's go to Big Girls for 200.
With TV's Jerry.
Skinny women can do this for you.
And Creamy D.
What is not a damn thing?
On 107.7, The Franchise.
We can't play that. People are mad.
I can't walk out.
What's the matter? Because they don't like big girls? Is that what they're mad about?
Yep, that's it.
There's a reason why I'm playing this.
Why can't you see?
Introduce our guest, he'll tell you.
Rylan Stiles joins us. I think I know why, though.
Rylan, is there any significance to why I played this?
There's massive significance. Elvis is the greatest artist of all time. He's an icon. He's a great singer, great actor. I've seen 22 of the 33 movies so far from him. I love it. So I really appreciate that, Jerry. That really means a lot to me.
Okay, I want to say something real fast because, I feel like I have a take on everything. But if this was 1980, I'd roll my eyes. But Rylan, you're like a young dude, so I appreciate the fact that you've rolled through this. You've rolled through an era. Elvis is maybe the most recognizable, one of the most recognizable people of all time. I don't know if it's, and this is going to sound bad, this is not a knock on you. I don't know if he's trendy still and popular. So the fact that he's your guy, I sort of dig that, dude. That's impressive. It's you're bringing it back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not going to just follow the crowd. I think Elvis is great. I think the Grateful Dead's great. I think Buck Owens is great. It's kind of more my vibe. But I really appreciate that. I just think that Elvis is a little bit underappreciated. You can get some deep cuts from him. He has kind of a wide range as well. He has poppy songs. He has country songs. People don't know about that. He's just great.
Somebody told me that your favorite artist was Elvis and your second favorite was Little Baby.
I prefer Little Uzi Vert personally, but yeah, Little Baby's awesome too.
I like Little Uzi Vert also. A lot of collabs with Bring Me the Horizon. Makes me happy.
So we started off hot with that because there's nothing to talk about yet. There's a ton to talk about. I put on a tinfoil hat today, and I kind of took umbrage a little bit with what's going on with Shea dropping his agent before he signed the big deal. Just want your opinion on what do you think about Shea representing himself before the ultra super mega comfy contract comes out?
Yeah, obviously, I went to a lot of public schools in Cameron, so I don't really have a great feel for business. But I do think that ultimately, the most logical part of this would be, since he's keeping his off-the-court representation, he's keeping his marketing representation and his sponsorship representation. It just feels like a guy who understands, the rest of his contracts are pretty much set. Until you get 10 years down the road, it's just, hey, Supermax time. Yeah, I'll sign it, and there's not much squabbling back and forth between himself and the Thunder. I think that they have a great relationship. So then why would you pay someone, a chunk of that money whenever you can just keep it yourself? Because there's not really anything in this next contract to negotiate. He's going to get the full Supermax. He's going to have, any options he wants or no options. He's going to do everything on his terms. He's that good of a player. So it just feels like he's cutting out the middleman of being able to handle his own negotiations. But, there's always that level of skepticism. Obviously, Thad had a great relationship or has a great relationship with the Thunder, so it's kind of odd in that respect. But ultimately, if I had to put on my tinfoil hat, Jerry, I would just say, man, you want to keep as much money as possible. Uncle Sam's going to hit you up. You don't want to be hit up by Uncle Thad, too. So I think he's just going to do this because the negotiations are so simple.
That's Rylan Stiles joining us here on 107.7 The Franchise. He is the host of Locked On Thunder podcast, of course, NBA co-host, lead writer for OKC Thunder SI. I completely agree. Grandpa over there, though, had a huge, he's not taking care of the guy who took care of him and who believed in him. I'm like, okay, how many jump shots has Thad hit in his career? I get it. He does represent Lou Dort, too. That's wonderful. But he's not averaging 20 a game. He's not the one doing this stuff. And you're right. The contracts are set. But Grandpa still was he's just pulling the rug out from underneath him. I'm like, I hope Thad can eat somewhere next week. He's fine,
Yeah, he'll be fine. I do think that this is, Joel Embiid, did the same thing that Chris Haynes reported on last night, too, that Joel Embiid also has done this. And for guys like this, it is so much less complicated because it's a sport, unlike baseball or something, where it's pretty cut and dry. You can't do you can't do any deferrals. You can't do any like loophole type things where you can in baseball and even football with the non-guaranteed stuff. This is just a parameter that is set that everyone knows. Everyone knows Shea's next contract right now, no matter if you're his agent or not, because you just know the CBA is going to work. He's going to make $80 million a year. He's going to be the highest paid guy for the time being in the league. And so I have to lean. I have to lean with that knowledge versus the skepticism. But I will say, obviously, it came out of the blue for all of us. So the skepticism, I think, for Jerry is warranted. I just don't know that it will play out that way.
That was a nice way to ride the fence there, Rylan. Good job on you. Let's get to All-Star Weekend really quick. The ratings are out, so I don't really need to get your opinion on what you thought about the All-Star.
Well, it's
weekend.
funny you say that. Let me just go ahead and read this really quick. Let's see. The NBA All-Star Game averaged 4.7 million viewers, the second least watched game on record. Despite the new tournament-style format, this is from Front Office Sports, by the way. Mm-hmm. Viewership down 13% from last year. Okay, now that we have the baseline set, please, by all means.
I'm going to ask him what he thought of SGA and Dub's performance in the All-Star, although limited, what he thought about the Thunder angle of that. I didn't need all that junk like right now. So that doesn't really relevant to the question I'm asking. Thank you, though, Dylan.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. But yeah, what do you think about Shea and Dub's performance in All-Star Weekend?
Yeah, I thought that Shea was incredible in that first semifinal game with 12 points. I thought that my tinfoil hat, Jerry, to join you in the tinfoil hat club, was that like Shea is typically a more passive guy, and even in these All-Star settings, we've seen him not put up flashy numbers his first two All-Star trips. But guess what? He debuted a brand new shoe, his first ever signature shoe, and all of a sudden this guy can't stop shooting the ball in an All-Star game. So I thought that there was a little bit of that, of like he wanted to make a statement his first time wearing those shoes in the game, and he did. I mean, he was incredible in that first semifinal game. And then the second semifinal game for Shea, the championship game for Shea, it just had no flow. I mean, Mark calls a timeout, and it turns into a 30-minute send-off for a bunch of guys who, guess what, are going to be doing NBA coverage next year as well with a different mic flag. That was just so ridiculous that it kind of ruined that second game flow. I do feel bad for J-Dub a little bit because he only had 2 points and played 7 minutes total. But if you dig into the history of the box scores of the NBA All-Star Game, first-year guys, including Shea in Salt Lake City, like Shea played like 8 minutes in Salt Lake City, and that was a full 48-minute game. So like the first-time guys typically don't play a ton anyway. So I do feel bad from J-Dub in one respect that they only got one semifinal game race to 40. But other than that, I thought Shea was really good. I thought Shea really gelled with the Jokic and those guys really well and kind of asserted himself to where that could be the first step of him becoming more outwardly the face of the league if things continue to progress this way.
Did you like the format?
I like the format in the sense of the tournament style. I thought that they needed to up the point total because these guys I thought that they played a lot harder. It's just a lot harder to stop offenses nowadays. And so, like, going to 40 is pretty low-hanging fruit for a bunch of guys this talented. I thought you could have stood to up the point total. I think you could have stood to have less of these hockey intermissions where we're pulling out pop stars and Kevin Hart. So I thought they should have had more basketball in the midst of this 3 hours. It was like a 40-minute chunk of those 3 hours were actual basketball. They got to fix that part of the format. But in terms of the tournament and especially splitting teams up, I think from now on you can't really do it east-west unless you're going to put, like baseball used to, the home court for the finals on the line. But splitting them up into these groups where they care about, like the international guys care about making a statement, the OGs, the youngsters, like all these guys care about what they're representing. I think that's what bred this more intense, comparatively, All-Star game.
You had a chance to talk to Kaysen Wallace over the break, I saw. How was that interaction?
Yeah, Kaysen was awesome. We talked about trading cards. I had no idea that Kaysen was a big Pokemon guy, and so as you can tell, with me being a big Elvis guy, my pop culture intersect with him did not connect there. But other than that, it was great. And I think that with Kaysen, the biggest thing is that he's just having a lot of fun. I mean, this was a guy that Jerry, whenever we were there, and Dylan, whenever we were there talking to him, whenever he first got drafted, he was a little more reserved, and I think that now he's more comfortable just from our interaction with him publicly, and then with this interview that we did with Panini. Like, he's just more relaxed overall, which I think is a good thing. But he said, as far as his injury goes, he said he's taking it day by day, but he's feeling good. So that's a good news for the Thunder fan base. And with that interview, he also said that he could not have gotten a Reese's bar from Lou Dort the way he was defending that woman in the commercial. And I just ask you, Jerry, do you think you could get past Lou Dort to get a Reese's bar?
I mean, back in my chubbier days, there would be no stopping me. But now, older, that I got on the Ozempic, I think he'd be able to physically keep me out of the Reese's aisle.
You're on the shot now, huh?
No, it's not. I'm an OG. It's Jardians. But to Lou Dort, you're speaking of Lou Dort. Happy announcement, too. That guy is having a baby. I thought that was.
Well, he's not.
Well, hold on. Rylan,
he's not having the baby.
Listen, I'm setting you up a little bit, and you don't have to bite on this, like, in particular. But, I mean, a shirtless picture with your wife announcing your baby? I mean, that's a bit much. That's a little Jerry Ramsey-ish, isn't it?
Jerry Ramsey, the sense of look at me, Louie. I mean, listen, if you got it, you can flaunt it. That's kind of the style nowadays. As a guy who has friends having babies now, which is weird to say, being my age, but that's kind of the style that people go with to announce their children's birth. So I got it. I understood the pictures, but again, if you have Lou Dort's body, pause. I mean, why wouldn't you have a picture like that out there? I'd never do that personally, but.
Well, I did, and it's no, I really did.
Was it tasteful?
No, I didn't.
First, okay,
I couldn't even keep a straight face.
Let's go here.
Again, you're Creamy D. I don't have Creamy D's bod. I don't have Lou Dort's bod. I couldn't pull that off.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. Basically, like if that picture were to happen and they saw me with my shirt off next to my wife, they'd be like, "Wow, that guy eats a lot of cream." Clearly, you can tell. So it's not, I never did. It was our stuff was always pretty low key. But if I look like Lou Dort, I'd do the same thing too.
First of all, black and white, it has to be tasteful, okay? So, blocking and shadows come into. I don't know if you know this, Rylan, a long time ago, I was a nude model for my artiste girlfriend. So I understand.
This is a real story. I'm actually still working to try and get a hold of this because we do know the picture exists. We just haven't been able to get it. And yeah, it's been a thing that this show is probably never going to accomplish.
It's all about positioning and shadows and placement. So it can be done.
Did the fedora stay on, or did the fedora block the goods?
It was apparently a leaf.
I was
tiny little leaf.
I was near shrubbery. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, between the hedges. Okay.
Literally.
So anyway, I don't know if you need all this, but starting up Friday at Utah, what a bummer to start this the unofficial second start of the season. I mean, do you have any problems with these guys getting their starter going at Utah?
Yeah, I think that the start in Utah, funny enough, they started with Utah out of the Salt Lake City All-Star break too. But I think that with Utah, it's a good way to rev up your engines a little bit because you should blow out Utah. I mean, this team, we know how seriously they take the regular season. They're not going to slip up against the Utah Jazz. And then you get yourself back in the groove a little bit because you have a back-to-back with Minnesota Sunday, Monday, which is in Minnesota and then in Oklahoma City. And that back-to-back will go a long way, of course, in determining the tiebreakers. Not that those are going to matter between these two teams, but it's just another look at a team who could contend for a deep playoff run with you. And it's going to come down to who has more guts to win that back-to-back because they're both going to be dealing with the same travel adversity as one another. They need to make quick work of Utah. You can't play with Utah. You have to get them out of the way early. That way you can rest guys in the fourth quarter. This has to be a game where Shea has his 15th fourth quarter off because you have that grueling back-to-back. So I think that if you want to put some flavor into that Utah matchup, you just have to watch for them to take it seriously and to run them out of the gym. Because if not, if they got to play a full game, have one day off to travel to Minnesota, then that back-to-back, then you could really have a messy beginning to the second half of the season.
Talking to Rylan Stiles right here on 107.7 The Franchise. You can follow him at Rylan_Stiles on the X or the Twitter if you want to. Of course, OKC Thunder, SI, Draft Digest, OKC Dream Team, does it all. Of the teams, and you mentioned Minnesota, but I'm kind of curious to get your thoughts. Of the teams that Oklahoma City could see in the playoffs, or I should probably phrase it this way. Who does the Thunder not want to see in their run towards a championship from the West this year? And who do you think that is? And is there a few teams that you have kind of marked that way?
Yeah, I think Denver's marked that way just because they have the best player in the world. And, typically the best player in the world can win you a playoff series by himself. And then, not to mention that alongside him, you have Michael Porter Jr., who we've seen get hot in the playoffs, Jamal Murray, who we've seen get really hot and really cold in the playoffs. But, playing alongside Jokic, he should be okay in that playoff series. And then the only downside to Denver is Russell Westbrook, because as we know in Oklahoma City, he's really emotional. And can you imagine if Russell Westbrook is stepping foot in the Paycom Center with a chance to go to the NBA Finals? He's going to have some embarrassingly bad turnovers from being too revved up. That could help the Thunder. But the reason I still say Denver is because with the way you have to defend Jokic. The Thunder love to send doubles, and they love to send pressure on the ball to the best player. But Jokic is such a gifted passer that he can whip the ball all around the floor. And then it comes down to guys like Christian Brown, guys like Michael Porter Jr., who've proven they can hit open shots in the playoffs, hitting those open shots. And then if you play Jokic straight up and don't send any help to him, the one-on-one between him and Holmgren and him and Hartenstein still favors Jokic. And it's no discreditment to those other two guys, but Jokic is just that talented. So I would say Denver for sure. You would love it if they fell before the Western Conference Finals. Other than that, though, Minnesota is a team that I think that you should have some pause about, even though they're seventh in the West, just because they can pack the paint, they can make you a jump shooting team, and we've seen what this team looks like whenever they're forced to shoot jump shots and you take away the drive. So all those bodies that they have in the paint would really give me a little bit of pause. And then Los Angeles, they have Luka, who's drugged with Dwight Powell to the Western Conference Finals before. So I don't think that Jackson Hayes will be too terribly bad for him alongside LeBron. I don't think that he could beat the Thunder. The Lakers could beat the Thunder, but I do think that they could give the Thunder a really long playoff series. But outside of that, this is why there's such high expectations. You don't really love any other West teams, in my opinion, against the Thunder.
All right, great stuff. Rylan, always a great conversation with you. I guess, one of these days we're going to have to actually get together. I'll introduce you to some good scotch and a cigar, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have to. We listen to some Grateful Dead at least, or Elvis if that's more your flavor, and smoke some cigars. I love it.
All right, we'll make it happen. All right, Rylan.
Good stuff, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, see ya.
Rylan Stiles joining us here on 107.7 The Franchise. We'll take a quick break. When we get back on the other side, I take umbrage, you said this earlier, that little phrasing right there, with something you said about OU basketball.
Sure.
So I'm gonna jump on that, and then I'm also gonna tell you who I think OU should go after next.
Sports Radio is 107.7 The Franchise. Powered by Parrish Devon, official personal injury lawyers of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Visit pepperwinds.com. That's pepperwinds.com.